is The Conservative American Message, hosted by the one and only Cam Lau. Today is March 31st, 2025, and it is National Crayon Day. Gandhi said, "Freedom is not worth having if it does not include the freedom to make mistakes." Before I do bless you with my political insights, you need to pay for it. This podcast is presented free weekly to you, and all I ask is that you give me a 5-star rating wherever you listen, and also that you would follow us on social media at The Conservative American Message. That's on Instagram or Facebook. That'll be your ticket to admission today. Also, don't forget about our new blog. You can find that at campodcast.square.site or at the link in the description of this episode. For those who didn't believe in Trump's tariff program that we were going to actually bring jobs back to America, you're being proven wrong. Because manufacturing is starting to move back to the U.S. Even foreign companies have invested millions and billions of dollars back into our country and American jobs because of the tariffs. They're not going to pay a 25% tax on everything. They'll just make it in our country. Listen here to President Trump's press conference with the CEO of Hyundai.
Hyundai is announcing a major $5.8 billion investment in American manufacturing. In particular, Hyundai will be building a brand new steel plant in Louisiana, which will produce more than 2.7 million metric tons of steel a year, creating more than 1,400 jobs for American steelworkers. And then there'll be major expansion after that. This will be Hyundai's first ever steel mill in the United States, one of the largest companies in the world, by the way, supplying steel for its auto parts and auto plants in Alabama and Georgia, which will soon produce more than 1 million American-made cars every single year. The cars are coming into this country at levels never seen before. Get ready. This investment is a clear demonstration that tariffs very strongly work, and I hope other things also, but the tariffs are bringing them in at levels that have not been witnessed. Hyundai will be producing steel in America and making its cars in America, and as a result, they'll not have to pay any tariffs. You know, there are no tariffs if you make your product in America, so it's something that's why so many people are coming. As you know, we have from Taiwan, the biggest chip manufacturer in the world, is coming in with $200 billion, and we have a lot of people coming and plants coming and companies coming that never would have been here, never would have even thought about it. The new steel plant in Louisiana is part of an even larger $21 billion investment Hyundai will be making in the United States over the next couple of years. The company will also be massively increasing its auto manufacturing in Georgia and investing billions of dollars in advanced American technology companies.
As you can see, there's a lot of foreign investment going on right now. Countries are willing to put their money behind the U.S. and the U.S. worker, most importantly. And that's really what it's all about. That's why these tariffs were put into place. Trump isn't an idiot. He knows what he's doing. The really sad part is how many of the industries have left the United States in the first place. Almost all of this started here. The U.S. invented everything. From cars to computers, chips, and cell phones. We invented it all, and we outsourced it to other countries to make it. We don't make anything anymore. The same thing goes for natural resources. Obviously, we didn't invent natural resources, but you know that the United States has a vast abundance of natural resources, and yet we've outsourced a lot of our energy and coal and different products to other countries, and we rely on them to make the products that are underneath our own feet. All Americans do, for the most part these days, is just consume. That's our culture. That's our government. We're just consumers. We don't actually make stuff here anymore. Our main export as a country has been money for the last 50 years. All we've done for the world is finance all of their stuff. And that's worked out decent for us so far, but that's not a very good long-term play. You need strong industry to back that idea that the US dollar is what everyone wants to use as their reserve currency. Because once that's not the world reserve currency anymore, the United States is going to have nothing to offer the rest of the world if we don't step up our industries here domestically. While some industries are shaking hands and celebrating with Donald Trump, there are other industries that have been pretty upset. Look at Coke and Pepsi. They are not happy with RFK's recent calls to ban pop from eligibility of purchasing with food stamps or other government assistance programs. Now, I can understand where RFK is coming from here. I mean, obviously, Americans are strongly in support of his Make America Healthy campaign. I think it's a great thing that we want to make people healthy, and I totally understand the sentiment that if we're buying the groceries for these people as the American taxpayer, then we should control what they buy. But that gets a little bit shady. You see, whether they're on government assistance or not, people still have the right to choose their own lifestyle. Obviously, I want everyone to choose a healthy lifestyle. I think that it's great to eat the right foods and be concerned about what's going into your body, and exercise and all these things are so important, but we can't force people to do them. You can't require somebody who is on Medicaid to go exercise so that their health bill doesn't drag down our Medicaid system even more as taxpayers. That's just not right. Now, we can talk about the legitimacy of these programs, such as food stamps, EBT, Medicaid, all these different things. But to say that because you're part of this government program, now we're going to place additional restrictions on you, I think that is a personal freedom issue. You should have the right to choose an unhealthy lifestyle if that's what you want. This is America. You have the freedom to make your own choices. This is massive government overreach, if you ask me, and it sets a really dangerous precedent, honestly. I mean, the slippery slope of allowing the government to tell people what food they can and cannot buy, even if the government's paying for it, I don't care. It's still not right. There's also a lot of logistical issues with a proposal like this. I mean, you're going to be talking about enforcing these policies of what food stamps can be used to purchase. Obviously, we already have certain restrictions. You can't buy alcohol or tobacco or things like that. But to actually call certain foods out specifically that they cannot be purchased, that burden and the costs of enforcing that is ultimately going to fall on retailers. And that isn't right either, to place more restrictions and regulations. The Trump administration is supposed to be about lifting regulations. And RFK, being a Democrat, I don't think that's the way he thinks. There's also a very gray line between what's healthy and what's not. Because how are you going to define, when you get into GMOs and organic food, where do you draw that line that what somebody can eat? I don't think the government has any place telling people what to put into their bodies. That is a personal choice. These programs are going to become a lot more expensive if we limit what people can buy also. I'm not saying that every poor person should have to eat cheap, accessible food because that's all that's there for them. But if the taxpayer's paying for it, if that's what's available, that's what they're going to have until they can get into a better situation. The idea that we're going to pay even more so that they can have so-called healthy food is just another burden on the taxpayer. So this is really a lose-lose situation because the person on the program is losing their freedom and the taxpayer faces more costs. I think the real solution to this is just education. Education over regulation every time. Teach people. I mean, I'd even be okay with certain government programs of our tax dollars being spent to educate people about their health, their mental, their physical, all these different aspects that are so important for people. That's the Make America Healthy again that I support. I'm not here to watch RFK shove a bunch of extra regulation down all of our throats. And being on a government program shouldn't make you a second-class citizen and take away your rights. I don't necessarily support all of these government programs. There are certain ones that do some good, and there's some that might do a little bit more harm than good. But just because you're on a government program doesn't make you any less of a citizen with less constitutional rights. At the end of the day, the real problem here, like I've said, is that we are outsourcing charity. We're allowing government, just like we outsource everything to government. We outsource retirement, health insurance, education, all of these things. We outsource our charity to government because we're too selfish as people to give to charity. Now, that's not true for most of us. Most of us listening to this show are probably very charitable people. But Americans as a whole view that as the government's role because of how we've been treated over the last 100 years now. The government will take care of people. We don't have to give to charity. So when you have the government in charge of something, the government is a tyrannical force that's going to regulate what people can and cannot do. This is my worry with RFK. From the beginning, I have been skeptical of him. I think he's a really honest guy, and he's trying to do what he believes is right, but what he believes is right might not actually be what is right. I'm also worried about what is he going to do in the future in relation to the ag industry. Like I said, organic foods, non-GMO, these are things that he's very, very passionate about. He has spent his entire career suing companies that he disagrees with, companies that actually support agriculture in this country and are the reason that we are able to eat food. If RFK is allowed to completely, without any supervision of anyone, go about creating policies like this, it's going to get really ugly really fast. I just hope that we have other people placed in the Trump administration who can stand up to him if he tries to pull something like this. But that's all I have time for. Were you offended by this podcast? Good. Thanks for listening, guys. I really appreciate you all. Have a great week and stay conservative.